Welcome to Board Gems. In this video I'll be comparing two editions of the game Patrician, designed by Michael Schacht. On the left is the 2007 edition from Amigo. This is of course the English edition from Mayfair Games. And on the right, the 2024 edition from Calliope. You'll notice the difference in subtitles: Towering Glory versus Towers of Influence. The back shows part of a game state, not a terribly impressive image. The towers don't seem particularly tall. Partial photo and a relative wall of text. Whereas in the new edition, less text, bigger image, and most importantly, you got the ABC. You got the 1, 2, 3. First you gotta play the cards, then you gotta stack the towers, then you're gonna win the game. The original edition was made in Germany, and the new edition in China, where most games are made nowadays, more or less. The Amigo edition was a standard rectangular box size, same as, for example, Carcassonne. The Calliope edition is smaller in 2 dimensions, but in thickness very slightly larger. Inside the box, the Amigo edition has a relatively generic plastic insert. It has a well on one side for the cards, and just several sized wells, which are not really proper for the contents, but they do the job. There is no insert in the Calliope edition, and one is not needed. The box is smaller, and it's relatively full with all its contents bagged. The Amigo/Mayfair English rulebook is one sheet folded. A small rulebook makes it look simple, but also not all that many images. Not that many images are needed, but if we look at the Calliope edition, it's many pages actually, and it has more images, more or less, still a lot of text. They do actually reuse a lot of the same text as in the original, including a bit where you return excess towers to the box, but there's no need to do that in this edition. Of course, in the back they have a bit extra with the additional modules that this one comes with. The older board is longer and narrower. The newer edition is shorter and maybe a bit squarer. With a change of format, there's enough room to fit the name of the game on there. I like to use that middle space to put the deck of cards. This is specifically the 2 to 4 player side. The 5 player side would have the missing city that would appear on the top. I think it's interesting how they changed how the missing city, the city that's not played with in 2 to 4 players, is presented. In the original, it's just kind of an outline of a city and not really shaded, so I think it kind of blends in relatively nicely in the background. And in the newer edition, I think it's interesting that they darkened it. It's not that one is better than the other, I just think it's interesting how somebody decided that the old way was not good enough and then decided to change it. The new board also has these little signposts between the cities, which is used in one of the extra modules, and the slightly changed layout of the newer board helps with that sort of module, that there's a token that you can put between 2 cities, and with the orientation of the cities in the old board, it would be a little bit more awkward. One important change, one not so important change in the tower pieces. The less important change is that the newer pieces in the Calliope edition are slightly thicker. Makes the towers just a little bit more impressive on the board. The more important change is the distribution of the towers. In the old Amigo edition, you would have more towers in white and black and fewer towers in yellow and blue. The idea being, depending on the number of players, you would use different colors. Which means in a 2-player game, you're always playing with white and black. In a 3-player game, you're always playing with white, black, and red. In the Calliope edition, you get the same number of pieces in all colors, which is welcome. Now players can pick their favorite color regardless of the number of players. This change actually necessitated a change in the 2-player rules. Now the game has different rules for 2 players, involving a dummy 3rd player, which is why they don't need extra tower pieces. Here we have the cards. These are the same cards that I found in both the old and the new editions. A couple of minor points. Of course, the backs are different now. The starting cards used to have sort of an asterisk symbol. Now they have a star. The symbol for moving a floor has changed from a symbol that actually looks like the floor piece versus something a bit more abstract. But I mean, it's still clear what it means. Instead of the city crests being on a kind of a blurry colored background, now they're given a sharper, more distinct background. And the cards, instead of having brown borders, now have white borders, which should improve the appearance of any wear on the cards. Also, this guy has changed appearance. The tokens are basically equivalent. I found with the newer tokens, even after just one play, the tokens on their backs, which, I mean, to be clear, the backs of the tokens don't matter. What matters is the fronts, is the values. But still, I can't help but notice that even after one play of the new edition, there's a bit of wear showing on the backs of the tokens. The city kind of crest symbols are simpler in the old edition. They have a bit more flourish in the new. They also changed the differentiator between 6 and 9 to be an underline instead of a dot. It shouldn't matter, but it does. The underline is clearer. Finally, here are the additional components for the Calliope edition. On the bottom, a double-sided player aid, and above that are some extra modules. Extra tokens that you can use in your game if you want to make the game slightly more complicated. I'm not that type and I haven't played these, but I'll put it this way, I do prefer a game by default is simple and has these sorts of modules if you want to make the game more involved, as opposed to the game being just more involved out of the box. I do prefer this way of doing it. Thanks for watching. Older games like Patrician don't stop being good, because newer games come out. Take care.